Welcome back to your science class. This video is for 6th class. So, in the previous video, we have studied our chapter 9th named Living Organisms, Characteristics and Habitat. And in this chapter, in the previous video, we have studied up to the topic habitat. So in this video we will continue our chapter and we will study for today environment, components of the environment, primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, scavengers, decomposers, interaction between abiotic and biotic components, adaptations, kinds of habitats, terrestrial habitats, deserts and much more. So, we will continue our chapter. So, our first topic for today is environment. The organisms do not live in isolation. They obtain their food and other necessary things from their surroundings. All the living and non-living things in the surroundings affect the life of an organism. Everything surrounding and affecting the life of an organism is called its environment. So what was the environment? Everything surrounding and affecting the life of an organism is called its environment. Now we have components of the environment. Several factors affect the survival of plants and animals in their habitat. So habitat is the surrounding area of the organisms. Living things like plants, animals, human beings and microorganisms in a habitat are the biotic components of the environment. Non-living things like soil, water, sunlight, temperature and wind are the abiotic components of the environment. Means the living things like plants and all are the biotic components and non-living things are the abiotic components. The biotic and abiotic components form the natural environment. In the figure 9.12 and 9.13 you can see we are also the part of the environment. We can change the environment according to our needs. We live in a human made environment, means we have the adaptations. Now we have biotic components. The biotic components of the environment can be divided into 4 main groups: producers, consumers, scavengers and decomposers. First of all, we have producers. Organisms that can manufacture their own food are called producers. For example, green plants make their own food from carbon dioxide and water in the presence of sunlight. So green plants are producers. These are the producers. Next up we have consumers. Organisms that cannot manufacture their own food but consume directly or indirectly food prepared by green plants are called consumers. Means consumers are those which feed on producers, which feed on green plants. All animals are consumers. Consumers can be further divided into 3 categories. Primary consumers or herbivores. Animals that eat only green plants and plant products are called herbivores or primary consumers. The examples of primary consumers are cows, horses, goats, rabbits and grasshoppers. Next up we have secondary consumers or carnivores. Animals that eat the flesh of other animals as food are called carnivores or secondary consumers. What are the examples of secondary consumers? Snake, frog and lizards are the examples of carnivores. Next is tertiary consumer or top carnivore. Large animals like lions, tigers and leopards that eat secondary consumers are called tertiary consumers or top carnivores. They are not killed or eaten by other animals. Next up we have scavengers. Organisms that feed on the dead remains of animals that are killed by predators are called scavengers. Kites and vultures are the examples of scavengers. Now we have decomposers. Organisms that decompose dead bodies and excreta of plants and animals to obtain their food are called decomposers. Bacteria and fungi are the examples of decomposers. Next up we have the topic interaction between abiotic and biotic components. What were the abiotic components? Non-living things were the abiotic components, and the living things like plants and animals are the biotic components. So, no organism can live independently. In any habitat, plants and animals, biotic components depend on each other and on non-living components, abiotic components of the environment. This is known as interdependence, means plants are dependent on animals and animals are therefore dependent on the plants. Because of interdependence, plants and animals help maintain a balance in nature. In figure number 9.19, you can see the dependency of decomposers, plants, and various organisms. Now we have the topic adaptations. Favorable features present in plants and animals that help them survive in a particular type of habitat are known as adaptations. Organisms adapt in a particular habitat by change in the body shape, organs, color, size, behavior and location. For example, lotus plant is well suited to live in an aquatic habitat and a camel is well suited to live in a desert. Means all the organisms, plants and human beings also adapt according to their surroundings. Organisms develop favorable features over a period of time. It is a slow and gradual process. Those plants and animals that are not able to adapt with the ever-changing environment cannot survive and therefore die. Different organisms adapt to the changes in different ways. This results in a wide variety of organisms in different habitats. Now we have kinds of habitats. The major type of habitats are terrestrial and aquatic. Terrestrial habitats. The organisms that live on land are called terrestrial organisms and their habitat is called terrestrial habitat. Examples: humans, cows, deer, tiger and lions are terrestrial organisms. Let's know about some terrestrial habitats. First one is deserts. Deserts are usually very hot during daytime and very cold at night. They get very little rainfall, so there is a little water available in the desert. A large number of plants and animals survive in desert. Let's study why and what adaptations they have in these conditions. Adaptations in plants. Cacti, singular cactus, commonly grow in deserts. This plant has the following adaptation. First one is it has a very long root that goes very deep into the soil to absorb water. Next up, the leaves are reduced to spines to reduce loss of water through transpiration. The stem is green, thick and fleshy because it stores water. Since this plant does not have leaves, the stem is adapted to make food through photosynthesis. The stem also has a waxy coating to prevent the loss of water. Next is animals in adaptations in animals. Desert snakes and rats live in deep burrows that have a cool and moist environment during daytime. When the desert is hot and dry at night, when the desert is cool, the animals come out of their burrows and holes. So the camel has several adaptations that help it survive in a desert. First one is it drinks a large quantity of water at a time and can stay without water for a long period of time. It excretes very little water in urine and its dung is dry. It doesn't sweat. So it is well adapted to survive in a desert. Now we have mountain habitat. These habitats are normally very cold and windy. As we go higher up in the mountains, the temperature decreases. Snowfall also occurs during winter. A large variety of plants and animals live in these regions. Now let's take a look at the adaptive features of these plants and animals. Adaptations in plants. Trees like pine usually grow on the sloping side of the mountains. Since most of the rainwater in such areas flow down the slopes, very little water is available to the trees. To conserve water, leaves are reduced to needle-like structures. In figure number 9.24, you can see the pine tree. It has needle-like leaves. And in figure number 9.25, you would be able to understand the adaptation in plants. Adaptation in animals. Adaptation in animals. Animals like yaks, bears, mountain goats and snow leopards live in mountains. Yaks have long hair and snow leopards have thick fur on their body to protect them from cold. Mountain goats have strong hooves for running up the rocky slopes of the mountain. It was all for this video. We will continue our chapter in the next video. Till then, stay tuned. Thank you.